Alright, Tobias here with the Hammer League that I've been playing one match at a time recently. I am going to try and finish it off tonight. It's after midnight, but I don't have anywhere to be until 2 in the afternoon, so it doesn't matter if I stay up late tonight. I can be irresponsible as much as I want. So I'm playing up 2-0 with some Hammer time, practicing for SCG Syracuse next month. I have won the die roll, and I will take the play. I do have this. I've been thinking about moving this sort of Fire and Ice to the sideboard because it's really good against the two decks that I think are the best strategic choices in the form of Blue-Red Murktide and the Yorion piles, because both of those decks play blue and red cards, times a lot of them. But it's really kind of clunky in a lot of matchups. So I've been thinking about moving it to the sideboard, but I can't do that in the middle of a league. However, this hand does have a hammer. I need to find a way to attach it eventually. I have Giver into Stoneforge, which is on the play is a really good path to Cauldra. I just have to decide if I want to fetch a shock for my first land, or if I want to just play basic. Opponent has Mull to 6. Okay. If I fetch a shock, if I had an Urza Saga, I might want to fetch a shock, but I don't, because that way I could play Urza Saga and hold up. Or I still have blue mana, I suppose, which comes up occasionally. I don't think there's any reason to do it with this hand specifically. Oh. Okay. So this matchup, this is really a really unfortunate hand to keep in this matchup. I need to find a way to attach a hammer real fast. Alright, so luckily they don't play a lot of removal in the main deck here. So Cauldra should be able to give me some game. Definitely not attacking in case they play a 2-2 Ballista. There's a Saga, that's one of their best draws. It's a Ravager. No, it's a Hangerback. Okay. In that case, I believe I can have 6 through the turn. Steel Shaper's Gift. That is a card. It's a good one. What am I going to do with it? So Cauldra with Sword on it is where I'm going with my next turn. I will gift... I'm probably going to gift the lifelink. I think I need the lifelink to race them. Like, I could just die out of nowhere. Like, this is going to get Ozolith, and then if they play, like, Ravager Ballista, I'm just going to die. So I need Shadow Spear. This is a match where Cauldra is quite good. Shadow Spear, save me. Stoneforge. Put in the correct equipment. Okay, I did not misclick. Go me. And then I will attack because their late game is better than mine. I need to kill them. Okay, I'm terrified that I'm just going to lose this game in a couple turns. Ink Moth, scary. I do have my own to block and give Pro Colorless, so that's neat. Yeah. I can no longer block and give Pro Colorless. It's a good card. Okay, so, well, Hammer's good eventually. I think I need to put the sword in and attach it to the germ if I have any chance of winning this game, because I need to get this Ballista off the battlefield. I think that's what I have to do. If they... I'm just deciding if there's any way that I can possibly beat Ravager in their hand. If they have a Ravager... So Ozolith... How does this work? I played Hard Scales for a little bit, but it was before Ozolith was a card. So if they hang her back up to 4, go to their turn, use their Urza Saga to hang her back up to 6, get an Ozolith, play a land, play a Ravager, sacrifice Hangerback Walker, which adds 6 counters to the Ozolith and 7 to the Ravager. And then that would add another... And then Ravager sacks onto Walking Ballista, which adds 8 to Walking Ballista, which is 10, plus 7 more is 17. Yeah. So if they have a Ravager, I die to the Walking Ballista. So I guess we play this sword that I was considering cutting. I think it's my best line. Alright. Just need to kill this Walking Ballista before Ozolith enters the battlefield. Hiya! Would not mind drawing exactly Ornithopter to insulate myself from an Inkmoth kill. Sword, kill the one that I can. Where are they going? My Giver. Okay, Giver's taking more damage. I don't see a reason to protect from anything, so I will not. Did I not draw a card? I definitely didn't draw a card, because I drew the second hammer for my turn. That is just confirming with my opponent that I have not in fact drawn a card. Oh, you know what? Does this have... Oh, you know, I've never actually seen this happen, where if the target fizzles, you don't actually get a card. That might be how this is. So, whenever deals combat damage to a creature, that's a trigger. Deals damage to 2 damage... yeah. They are, in fact, the same ability. I'm learning, again. I always just had them as 2 separate abilities in my head, but they do seem to be the same ability. Yep, I understand. Opponent also understands. So I will pass my turn, and I suspect that they have Ravager in their hand, so I'm dead, so none of this matters. If they don't have Ravager, things matter. If they have Ravager, I am quite dead. There's no world where they would ever make a construct token here, because they're just dead. So, not surprised they're floating mana. Hangerback Walker's not that great in this matchup, but Walking Ballista is one of their best cards. Hardened Scales is one of their best cards. Oh. Okay, they have... they did not have a Ravager, as it turns out. So... what to do? I definitely need this sword. Thank you for your service. I definitely would like March because it can interact with Hardened Scales and Ozolith. And Giver of Runes giving protection from Colorless is quite poor because then my equipment fall off, so not doing that. Pithing Needle is probably my best card. Does Lavinia do anything? I don't think they normally play Force of Vigor. I don't think. So I'm not going to bring in Lavinia. Blacksmith Skill is almost always an amazing inclusion. Rest in Peace is interesting. You wouldn't think that Rest in Peace is interesting if you just look at the sort of the macro strategy of they're playing artifacts with modular, or they're playing artifacts with +1 counters, I suppose. And why am I considering Rest in Peace if you're not familiar with exactly how modular works? Where modular does require the creature that dies to go to the graveyard for it to move its own counters. Now, Ozolith doesn't actually absorb those counters itself. If you read Ozolith, it's a little bit misinformative, but the way that Ozolith works is it will, whenever one of your creatures leaves the battlefield anyway, even if it gets exiled, however many counters were on it, put that many counters onto Ozolith. So with modular, if you have a Ravager with, say, 4 counters on it and an Ozolith, you sack the Ravager, put 4 counters onto a different creature from modular, and then Ozolith also gets 4 counters. So that is a thing that can happen. And I think Rest in Peace is interesting enough. I think Blacksmith Skill's still probably better. Reality Chip could be a little bit slow. This match is very fast. So I think I'm going to cut Chip, Memnite, and bring in a couple skill. I kind of want to bring in more skill, but this is a matchup where I need Steel Shaper's Gift because I need to assemble my things. Memnite's so unexciting. I'm going to cut one more skill. Okay. We're going to have the Rest in Peace even on the draw. Just because Arcbound Ravager is that scary in my mind. It technically turns off Hangerback Walker too. That is also a trigger that checks going to the graveyard. Well, you know, sometimes you just side in 3 Blacksmith Skill and have them all in your opening hand. I'm going to have to mulligan this one on grounds that it had neither a hammer nor a creature, missing too many pieces. Let's see. They have also mulled to 6. They've kept 6. This hand, wow, the Moto Shuffler today, giving me 3 of a kind. I like these poker hands. So this hand is fascinating because it has a hammer and a way to attach it, but the way to attach it is slow. I'm missing a second land, and it even has to be a white source. There are 7 colorless lands in my deck. I'm going to mulligan this one again, because this matchup is about speed. This hand has... It looks like I'm going to 4. Esper Sentinel on the draw is unexciting, and I have a hammer but no way to attach it. Yeah, going to 4. Okay, my 4 cards are Land, Stoneforge, Sigarda's Aid. Cool. I'm going to play Sigarda's Aid. I hope it doesn't blow up. On a Mold of 4, I have 1 games on a Mold of 4 because Hammer only needs a small amount of cards. Yeah, there's their card. Dang it, deck. Because Hammer only needs a small number of cards to actually win the game. The trick is not running into every form of interaction in the entire world on the way there. So, ideally, I want to have Hammer and Shadow Spear. Even more ideally, I'd like to have 2 hammers and they don't have a blocker. Ooh, Saga is one of my best draws. Even if they try and blow it up with the trigger on the stack, I can still float mana because I have Yapamaya. Which they did not realize, so I will take it. Oh, there's a triggered ability on the stack. That's funny. Thanks for playing Yapamaya, opponent. I appreciate it. Okay. The fact that they were so willing to fire that off, I think means they have a way to interact with Sigarda's Aid or a hammer. And if I think that, I should get Kaldra. But if they have Dismember, nothing matters. Because they'll just kill my creature in response to hammer. So the fact that they deployed literally nothing on their previous turn makes me want to pick Kaldra. But the fact that I have a Sigarda's Aid makes me want to pick a hammer. Since I have... Let's see. If I think they have another Naturalize effect, then Kaldra's better. If I think they have a way to kill my Stoneforge, then... Like a Walking Ballista onto, because they do have hard skills, then Hammer is better so that I can put it onto my next creature. I I don't know how many Nature's Claims this deck normally plays in the sideboard. I think it's more likely that they have a Naturalize than they can kill my Stoneforge. I think. It's hard to say, though. So, I'm just trying to come up with a good reason to pick one or the other. Because, now that I say it out loud, they definitely have 4 Ballistas, which definitely kill Stoneforge Mystic, which make Culture really bad. They're already down 1 Nature's Claim. Even if they have 4, then I think it's more likely that they have a way to kill my creature. So I'm going to pick a Hammer. And if they have a Walking Ballista, then they have to throw it down now. Okay. Looks like they did not. Ooh, Saga, nice. So I am going to attack them. Unfortunately, on the Multi-4, I don't feel like I have much luxury. Before I attack, just in case they have a way to blow up Sigarda's Aid, I'm actually going to cast Hammer. Because I don't want to throw my Stoneforge Mystic directly into... yeah, there it is. Okay, turns out I guessed wrong. Well, actually, I guess I still can attack if I want to. But it turns out my gut was correct, where they had the second Naturalize, not the Ballista. So, maybe should have gone with my gut. Stirrings, that's a very good card in this deck. Hope it doesn't find Ravager. Did not find either of the cards that I said. The one that I said by accident, or the one that I didn't want it to find for real. Okay. Now I just need to draw that Pure Steel Paladin and then shuffle back into my deck. Holy crap. Okay. I only have 1 artifact, though, so I can't get ahead of myself. I have to play a land and then make an artifact with Saga. Chump block a couple times, perhaps. I do need to get to a position where I can put Hammer plus Shadow Spear, which I'm going to find off this Saga, into play. Because they're going to have so many blockers with just over the course of this game. Pendlehaven, okay. They have their own Shadow Spear. That's extremely bad for me. Well, maybe not extremely. That might be an overstatement. But it's definitely not good for me, that's for sure. They have no cards in hand. Tapping the fetch land for mana since I don't need to use it for white yet. And this saves me a life. I will have to use it for white for a Pure Steel eventually, though. Another Saga is a good draw. Can I afford to play it this turn? I can, yes. So I guess I can add green, that's funny. So I float mana here, I get white here. I have a Shadow Spear. I suit up the Construct because it's bigger and gains me more life. Crack in, then move my equipment over to Stoneforge. That seems like the line. I'll float mana just because I can, although I cannot use it. If this were in paper, I would ask my opponent if I could just fetch with my Windswept Heath at the same time, but it is Moto, so I have to do them separately. Here is Shadow Spear. Here is Plains. Here is a Saga. Here is a Pure Steel Paladin. If my opponent decides to block, then I can't move everything. I can just move the hammer. Hello. I also have a large creature with Shadow Spear, but mine is bigger. They are going to block. They're going to put counters on. Sure. Yep. This absorbs 4 damage. Yep, I would like to hit for 10. Yep, they would like to get 4 Thopters. And get... Is this when it enters or casts? When it casts. Okay. So, 14. Okay, so I can't actually move the hammer or else my construct will die. Is it worth it to move the hammer anyway? Lose the construct, but have a giant blocker so that they can't attack easily? That might actually be worth it. That sounds worth it. Because I can make more constructs next turn. Yeah, I don't want to take... If they cast an artifact, this will be 8. I don't want to take 8. By construct. I appreciate your service. And then, joke's on my opponent, I can make their creatures lose hexproof and indestructible for 1 mana. Okay, let's see what they got. I have access to my 3rd artifact with Urza Saga next turn. They're not doing anything in main 1. They can attack with flyers. What does this mean? That they want to attack. This might mean that they drew another Nature's Claim effect, or it might mean that they just want to gain 6 life. They did not attack with Inkmoth Nexus. This feels kind of like a way to interact with my board. I moved my thing over to block, that's what I'm going to do. But I will not be surprised if something happens before damage. It is the 3rd Nature's Claim. Yeah, that felt right. Unfortunate. I wanted to make them use it on the hammer, and not the saga, at least. Would like to draw... I can just draw another hammer, if I'm just getting whatever I want. That is another hammer. Thank you, deck, for being insane. Unfortunately, if I cast the hammer this turn, then I will only have 2 artifacts. So what? I can do it anyway and just see if I draw another artifact. But if I don't, that's so bad. So I think what I'm going to do is put the hammer into my hand, hold up Saga to make constructs, and then hope to fade 1 draw step. Like, I could get this Paradise Mantle, which is interesting, but as long as I fade a draw step, then next turn the Saga will get a hammer, I'll be able to attach Shadow Spear, and I'll be able to attack for 20... I'll have 2 constructs? Yeah. So 2, 3... Hammer makes 4, makes 5. 6. I'll attack for 26. They won't be dead, because they gain a lot of life, but I think that's my best play. I will definitely not attack with Pierce to Paladin. Alright. 1 draw step. Please don't let it be Walking Ballista. I asked nicely. They are paying cost, so it's a castable card, it's not a land. It's a hanger back. That's fine. That's not a Walking Ballista. It's not the thing that I was afraid of. Alright, they're not going to do anything else. Except for hit me for a lot of damage. They know my card in hand. I'm not blocking. Ow. Marsh Flats is unexciting. Here we go. Another thing. Another hammer. I could get Pithing Needle. I feel like it's not good, though. I feel like I need to pressure them. So I will. Yes, I would like to draw a card. Well, that's an Ornithopter. Equip 0, as soon as I have priority. Equip 0. If I draw an Urza Saga, I'd rather play that than a Marsh Flats, so we'll see what happens. They know I got this last turn. Guess I'd like to draw a card. That's really funny. What would that have been otherwise? I'm going to cast Ornithopter because it makes my thing bigger. I think it would have been Blacksmith Skill. The fourth one, possibly. Alright. Hiya. You don't even have to block. If I had Blacksmith Skill, they would die. Because it gets +2/+2. That's so funny. I think they should have put... Well, maybe not should have, but if... I don't think the game's going to be decided on the back of a single Thopter token. So I wouldn't have been surprised if they had decided to block with one Thopter just to play around exactly Blacksmith Skill. I think the opportunity cost is rather low. But I don't fault them for not doing that. I don't think it's objectively wrong. Okay, I'm going to split my hammers up. I'm going to leave lifelink on the untapped one. Because if they draw a Walking Ballista, I'd rather have two large creatures that are both rather lethal. And let's see, am I dead if they draw Ravager? Yes, I am. Nothing I can do about that because I didn't have the extra mana to play the rest in peace. Yeah, dead to Ravager. Please don't draw it. I mean, my decks are insane, so if they top deck Ravager, I will not even be mad. I will be dead, but not mad. Okay, they paused. I can imagine them pausing if they drew Ravager, counting to see if I'm dead. I can imagine that they paused if they drew a castable spell that does something, like a Walking Ballista. I can imagine them pausing if they drew a land, just to be mildly depressed at a bout of bad luck. I can imagine them pausing if they went to go get a drink of water. Okay. The pause was that they were not able to come up with a way to keep themselves alive. Okay, that match is very scary, like I said. Both of our decks are doing extremely powerful artifact things. They kept a hand that was mostly reactive, and I kept a 4-card hand in that game. I forgot, jeez. But those are the types of games where I think Hammer is advantaged, where they never really get their engine going. They need to overwhelm me, really. They need, I think, Ballista plus Ravager plus Hardened Scales, and then I'll just die. But when they have to play kind of fair, like their 8/8 lifelink trample was like kind of fair in that game. When they have to do that, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, decks that try and attack with creatures and don't have a lot of removal. Hammer is good against those strategies because my creatures are oftentimes bigger, which means I win the race. So I don't have a way to attach a hammer, but I have a Saga, which is a really strong plan B, and I have a Stoneforge, which can find Kaldra if this is a low removal spell match, I think. If I think this is a low removal spell match. I can find a second hammer if I draw a Sarkardizade or Paladin by then. Or it can find Reality Chip if I feel like I need another creature. Stoneforge being able to tutor directly a creature is kind of interesting. I'm going to keep this. Jegantha could mean a lot of things. Most recently it's been Affinity, and I think this hand is good against Affinity because they don't have a lot of removal in game 1, so Kaldra can be good. Steam Vents. Bobble. Okay, what do we got? Ragavan. Okay, we're Ragavan deck. Sure. So did they target me? Yeah, so they know I have this plains. That's fine. I'll give them some free information, I suppose. Here's a land that is not a plains. I fully expect removal spell on Mem Knight and Ragavan attacks. That happened literally as I said it. Definitely didn't expect an Esper Sentinel. Dang, I wanted that. Okay, so I guess this is just Shadow, which is one of the worst matchups for me. Alright, here's a Saga. Here's a Stoneforge. So Shadow decks have a lot of removal in them. I don't think Stoneforge is surviving, which means I need to get something else. I think I'm going to get Reality Chip for a couple reasons. One is that it blocks Ragavan, and the other is that I don't have a way to attach a hammer. So I was not particularly interested in picking up a hammer. I guess I didn't even pay attention to the fact that I drew a Steel Shapers, so I have another hammer anyway. Yeah, ow. Marsh Flats, okay. Thank you, Ragavan, I did not want to draw that. Paradise Mantle, I was considering tutoring that with Steel Shaper's Gift, and now I don't even have to. So I know I have this Plains. I can play Steel Shaper's Gift. Oh no, I'm not going to play Steel Shaper's Gift because I need to make a construct this turn. It's either that or play Reality Chip this turn. I'm going to... I don't want to play Paradise Mantle either because then I have to pay the tax on this Esper Sentinel. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a construct to try and block Ragavan. It's likely not to... likely not to work. But if it does, then Ragavan's off the table. Do the thing that I said I was going to do. Can I go to blocks? I sure can't. It was, in fact, likely not to work. Alright, what you got from me? A hammer. I don't think they want that one. Expressive, the best card in Modern. Yeah, this is a matchup that's just, like, horribly atrocious for me. They have a small number of very efficient threats, and the rest of their deck is removal, and that's really good against my strategy. Sagardazade is one of the better draws here. I suspect that it's not resolving, which is very unfortunate. So I might just... Esper Sentinel is really hard to play through, especially when it's my Esper Sentinel. Ragavan on the play is really... Ragavan on the play, followed by no additional creatures, is actually one of the best draws that one of the hardest... one of the hardest things for me to play through as a hammer player, where they just have a Ragavan backed up by infinite removal. It's really, really difficult to beat on the draw. At this point, I'm thinking about playing Reality Chip. I'm thinking about playing Sagardazade. They've used one Drown. They shocked in a Steam Vents. They have 3 cards in hand. I might do make a Saga token, play land, cast Paradise Mantle, pay for the tax. Then my Saga token's at 2/2. Which can eat Esper Sentinel straight up, or still trade with Ragavan. Alternatively, I can play Reality Chip, and so I can float mana, get like a Mem Knight. So I'm probably getting a Mem Knight here. Spoiler, because it blocks those things. Play Reality Chip, and then play Sagardazade paying the tax. I like that better, but it is less material, and I feel like I need to not get ground out. So I like this second line. Alright. I didn't trust my gut last time. This time we're just trusting my gut. The one that I said I like better, that's what we're doing. Where's that Memnite? There you are. Okay. Here's Chip. Does it get drowned? Or does it enter the battlefield? Drowned. Wait, blue red. Is this dressed out? No, they just tapped wrong. It is drowned. Okay. They need their treasure to be black. Yeah, there it is. They were playing like they had a drown. That's fine. This does mean that I get to put Sigarda's Aid onto the battlefield, which is a nice upside. Get a basic. Sigarda's Aid. Okay. Pay the 1, because I don't think I can beat it otherwise. And am I planning on... So I could cast this Paradise Mantle now and snaps onto Memnite, but I think I'm planning on blocking with Memnite, so I'll just save that for a different time. Okay, opponent is doing this. I am blocking, like I said. What am I blocking? I think I have to block Ragavan. It's the better card. The fact that they're letting me do this makes me think they have a second Ragavan. Or 2 shadows, which would be way worse. 1 shadow. By Gigantha. Sure. Okay. The problem now is that I'm out of creatures. So here's this. Yes, pay for it. Okay. So I think I need Shadow Spear to gain life. And then play a Plains, because I'm not sure if I'll have the life to work with anymore. I could fetch a tapped Shock. Fetching a basic is the same. Fetching a tapped Shock gets a land out of my deck. That's something. Okay. They have Gigantha and 1 unknown. We'll see what happens. Let's see, if the unknown is dressed down, I die immediately, because this just becomes a 13. Alright. I did not die immediately. Here's Gigantha. If I had to guess. Ooh, a Kroxa. You have successfully gotten my Paradise Mantle. It has been got. Oh, they can escape Kroxa. Ew. I think that just means I'm dead. I could discard the land to go out on my own terms. Do I have any chance in this game? If the Kroxa attacks, I die. Okay. Turns out I was, in fact, marginally wrong. I would have rather had the token from the Saga instead of casting the spells I did, but I wouldn't have the Sigarda's Aid in play. It's actually rather unclear. I would like to have both in play, but my turn didn't allow for that. So... Pure Steel into Shadow Spear, into Hammer, into something to discard with Kroxa technically keeps me alive. That is an insane slew of draws, but that's what I'm going with. It's the only thing I think that has any chance of keeping me in the game. I will fetch because I want to maximize my chance of drawing Pure Steel. It is not. We will concede. Yes. Okay, I have been defeated by what is probably my worst matchup. Blacksmith Skill coming in. Sword of Fire and Ice is interesting, but quite slow. I think it's better than Kaldra. Maybe. Because it's not better than Kaldra on the battlefield, but putting a Kaldra onto the battlefield is a challenge. Steel Shaper's Gift. Not that great. I'm going to cut a Drum and a Paradise Mantle and a Thopter and a Thopter and a Thopter, I think. I think that's what I usually do. Relic is interesting. See, did they show me a Bauble? They did. So they have Darcy in their deck somewhere. Pithing Needle could name Explosives. On the play, I like Spell Pierce. I'm definitely bringing in Rest in Peace. And maybe the Paradise Mantle could come back. The Relic's like fine. I did end up losing a game once. I don't remember if it was against this matchup, but I remember losing a game once where I needed to find... Oh, it was, but it was because this was before the Luris ban. It was against Grixis Shadow, and I needed to get the Relic out of their graveyard because they had wished for Luris. Or I needed to it would not make any sense. I had a Saga, it resolved, and I was going to search for Relic, and then I realized I hadn't brought it in. And they had explosives in their graveyard, and they had just wished for Luris, so my plan was to use the Relic to get the entered explosives out of their graveyard, as well as the rest of their graveyard out of their graveyard, so that their Luris couldn't rebuy it and just lock me out of the game under entered explosives on 0 or 1 or 2 every single turn of the game. But unfortunately, I had not brought in the Relic and lost because of that. So that was a different time. That was because I needed a Relic to interact with Luris. Since that is not the case, do I still want Relic? Crocs is actually one of their worst threats against me. But I'll bring the Relic anyway. We'll see how it goes. Yes, I would like to play first. I will do my best. This hand would be the actual... Maybe not the actual nuts, but pretty dang close if I had a white source. But I don't. Mulling against the discard spell. Okay, mulling again against the discard spell deck? Okay, so... This hand is really tough, because if they have a hand that interacts well with Saga, then I'm just going to get run over, and I will not be in the game. If they do not have a hand that interacts well with Saga, I will be in the game, and possibly make quite a game out of just the two Sagas. I don't like keeping this hand, but I can see a world where I can just bury them in construct tokens. I would definitely throw this back on the play. Or sorry, I'm on the play. I would definitely throw this back on the draw. But I'm going to keep it on the play, and I will see if it's good enough. I really doubt that they have a Blood Moon effect. I'm going to throw the second fetch land back, though. Done. Here is a Memnite. Here is a Flooded Strand. I hope they turn one Thoughtseize me. And just see my hand that has no spells, but still kind of 2 spells. No, not that one. That one's your best card. I'd really rather you didn't have that one. I am shuffling the land that I put on the bottom back into my deck by doing this, but I'm also saving 2 life points in case I need to fetch an untapped Hallowed Fountain. That is a very bad draw. I don't think they make this trade. I'd rather than not dash a Ragavan. I'm going to choose not to attack. I don't want to help hurt them if I can avoid it. Putting them to 16, I found, just by trial and error, 16 is usually a safe one for them to be at, because if they fetch shock, they're still at 13 and can't play the Shadow. Oh, well, I'm... This is a card that not everybody plays anymore, but I believe that's just taking my entire game plan and throwing it down the drain. So... Here's an Inkmoth, here's a Sigardazade, which is a good draw. If they have Spell Pierce, I'll be quite sad. I don't think they normally play Spell Pierce. And then I will not attack. Alright, this card, frustrating. I was going to bring March in on the draw, because I have to be a little bit more reactive, but I don't have any way to interact with this right now. And my draws have been... This one's been good, the Sigardazade, but everything else has been terrible. And my opponent knows the secret, which is they just literally never tap out and I can't win. Yeah, I'm going to save myself some time. I cannot win this game. It'll take my opponent a long time to actually win the game, but I'm dead. When Grixis Shadow was the best deck in Modern with Lurrus, I played that matchup a lot of times, and there were some opponents who... there were some draws that I would have where it would feel like I was still in the game, and there were a lot of draws where I could tell when I was dead, and that was a game where I think I was going to take a long time for me to lose, but it was I was trying to come up with a number that's not an exaggeration. I would put myself at like 95% dead. Okay. So we're not playing for the 5-0. Opponent is on the play, it looks like. And it looks like they have a companion. Gigantha again. Well, my hand's quite good. If it's Shadow again, then that's really bad. If it is Affinity, I have a chance. If it's a different Gigantha deck, like Tron or something, then I suppose I also have a chance. Are you telling me that I have to play against 2 Shadow decks in a row after not seeing one for the last 2 leagues that I played? Or are you telling me that this is just Affinity that plays Fetch Lands? Please be that one. I've never seen that before, but please be that one. Dang it. And they have the discard spell instead of the Ragavan? Well... there are a lot of things that I could say about this, but I'm not going to because I'm trying to keep it PG. Alright. So let's just hope the top of my deck is insane, because if it's not, I'm going to die. I have 3 1-drops. I think the one that I am most interested in keeping is Sigarda's Aid. So that's... if my opponent... it depends on my opponent's hand. They have 5 cards, I can't tell what they are. But all of my cards are... they all have play, so... my hand is insulated against Thoughtseize. Yeah, they took the Aid, that makes sense. There's a Giver. My hand was pretty insulated against discard spells. If I draw exactly Reality Chip, then I guess I might want to play that and Saga next turn, so I could fetch a Shock here. Oh, that's a reason to fetch a Shock. I don't have Spell Pierce in my deck. If I draw the Reality Chip, I'm going to have to fetch a Shock eventually anyway. But if I don't, then I might rather have some extra life points. I think Giver is slightly better on the draw, because I'd rather just have it go through its summoning sick phase as fast as possible. Would definitely play Esper Sentinel first on the play. Yep. Okay. There's the heat, sure. And they're holding up nothing? Well, I drew the Hallowed Fountain anyway. So, this is really interesting. I think... so, because of the way my hand is, I think I have to plan out 2 turns ahead. There's some temptation for me to play a White Source and play both my 1-drops this turn. But then looking at what I can do next turn, my next turn would be Urza Saga Pass. So, if this was still Lurrus era, I would make that play in a heartbeat, because it would be Urza Saga by Lurrus, and that's actually a thing to do with my mana. But it's not. So I think over the next 2 turns, what my best plan is play Saga, play one of these cards. Probably the Giver of Runes with the same logic as before. And then pass. And then on my following turn, I have Activate Saga. And on my following turn, I have Activate Saga plus play Sentinel. So I think that mapping it out this way gives me the highest odds of having turns that matter 3 turns in a row. Whereas I can buff up my previous turn by playing the Saga, or by playing the Sentinel and holding the Saga, but it costs me too much time, I think. Is this Giver also dead? No, okay. That's fine. Bloodstained Mire, so they got the 2-for-1. That is, in my opinion, still the best card in Modern. Expressive Iteration. Shadow is probably actually... Yeah, there it is. Alright, I have yet to find a good draw this game. So I think we play the Nexus, so that if I find, I don't know, a way to attach a hammer, like if I draw a Pure Steel Paladin and they tap out, then I guess I have something to do. But now I have the Giver active. Giver is one of my better cards in the match. They have 5 cards in hand still. Okay. So my plan here is going to be, if they attack, to make a Saga token, give it Pro Black and block. Shredder, okay. Sure. Bobble, sure. Oh, and they get to draw a card instead of Connive, it's just straight draw a card. Dang. Targeting me, sure. Holding open 2 mana, but it's not both red, so they can only have 1 removal spell here. Alright, 4 blocks. Create a blocker. I would like to go 2 blocks. Hooray, I am in blocks. I would like to target my thing. Players tend to enjoy responding to this ability, even though it doesn't realistically matter when you do it. It might be, off the top of my head, it might be very, very, very slightly better to respond to the ability than to wait. Yeah, drown the Giver. Yeah, see, they were going to kill the Giver anyway, so they didn't have to do this. They could have waited till post-combat. But it doesn't matter. Literally nothing matters about what I was talking about in this situation. Because specifically I had no mana to do anything else with. They know I'm drawing Shadow Spear, and they didn't have any mana to do anything else with either. Alright, make token. Because I just need to put the most amount of cardboard onto the battlefield. Or in this case, digital cardboard onto the battlefield. And I'm only going to cast 1 spell this turn. Because I can only cast 1 spell this turn. I guess if I get Springleaf Gem, I could cast 2 spells this turn. But I'm not doing that. I will... I think Memnite is slightly better than Ornithopter because Memnite has power. And Ornithopter would have to chump block the Letter Shredder anyway. So that's what I'm going to go for. I'm going to fetch up a basic to preserve my life total as much as possible. I've got to play the Sentinel. And I kind of want to attack, because that would put them to either Dead Ledger Shredder or 3, and 3 is a number that I could hit them for over the course of a game. It grows their shadow, which is terrifying, but I don't think I'm winning this game any other fashion. Alright, go nuts. This deck does usually play 2 Dress Downs in the main, which is frustrating, because that would just wrath my constructs immediately. So I hope that doesn't happen. But they have 3 cards in hand. If they're all removal spells, I'm probably just dead. If they have to hold Shadow back on defense, that's the best news. So likely they attack with... Okay, Darcy is fine. That could be on defense. And then they cast something. Expressive. Okay, that is the best card in Modern. Are they going to pay for this? They might not, honestly. They are going to pay for it, okay. So they're going to surveil first. They surveilled Thoughtseize away? Okay. And then they looted away the other Thoughtseize in their hand. That makes sense. I was going to say, I think they would want to just connive that one to get the +1 counter. But the fact that they had one in hand already makes a lot of sense why they didn't do that. Steve Vance into the exile zone. That's probably being played tapped. If it's untapped, then they're a Mad Lad. Or Mad Ladette. Or Mad Envy. I would envy the NB. I'd envy their spunk for playing that untapped. Yeah, makes sense. Okay. My draws have been so depressingly bad. Holy crap. So, what do? I have the Ink Moth that I can animate, which grows my constructs. I have the Shadow Spirit, which grows my constructs. So, what if I make... Can I have there be too many lethal things to handle? They definitely have to block both constructs. And they get to eat 2 of my other things. But if I put the Shadow Spear onto the Memnite, say, for example, then they have to eat one of my constructs, chump one of my constructs, and take a point of damage anyway. So that would leave me, like, if I put Memnite on, or Shadow Spirit and Memnite, which I guess my clock's running, so I'll do some stuff. So my constructs are 5s. If I put the Shadow Spirit on the Memnite, like I was saying, this gets blocked. They probably chump with the Darcy. Darcy has to attack. That's fascinating. Does that mean that I just wait a turn? Because they have 1 fewer blocker next turn and they die instead? That's interesting. If Darcy didn't have to attack, I would probably make a forcing attack here, because it eats 1 of their creatures. But Darcy has to attack, so that eats 1 of their creatures by accident anyway. I'm going to put this onto the Sentinel? I could hold up Inkmoth Nexus animation. I'm going to put this on Sentinel. I like to draw cards, or at least tax their mana as much as possible. I don't think this matters, but... I mean, when they have 5 mana, I don't think it matters. Yeah, if that Darcy just happened to be a 3/3 vanilla, I would have made an attack there to get creatures off the board. But Darcy has to attack anyway. Is this Croxa? I suppose that's annoying, because I have to discard a land, so it hurts me. Yeah, it's definitely Croxa. My opponent has to figure out what they're keeping in the graveyard. Oh, I forgot that Croxa can turn off Delirium. Awkward for me. Maybe I need to make an attack anyway. Yeah. Get rid of this Hallowed Fountain because this one gives me a choice. I like choices. Yep, now they don't have to attack. Smart. Dang. I'd rather have a free win than a smart opponent. They have 3 blockers. I don't really want to block this, because it shrinks my constructs down to 4s or 5s if I animate Nexus. And 5s aren't enough to trade with Croxa, but I don't really want to trade with Croxa anyway. Is there any world that where I win this game anymore? I'm not sure. Because I don't think there's a single draw that does it. Well, there is actually. Exactly Sword of Fire and Ice would do it. If that's the card I'm playing too, I'm going to chump their creature. Oh, and they have another creature. Wow. When I said this matchup was bad, I didn't mean at the time that it was literally unwinnable. But, like, that's what it feels like right now. Well, my sword no longer is lethal. I'm ready to draw Cauldron and be sad. That card helps. Here it is. This time, I'll move this over to the bigger creature. And pass. I think I'm still dead. Okay, they have another creature. Drowns going after my big thing. Okay. They're paying. They get to surveil and connive. Sure. They're putting iteration into the graveyard. Definitely putting Ragavan in the graveyard, sure. And then Croxa into the graveyard. Nothing I can do here. Alright, they have to attack now. I have to lose 3 life now. They have 2 flying blockers. The only thing they could have been digging for is a 1-mana removal spell. I think that Construct Token is my best chance of winning. Probably. They're holding here, so they have the 1-mana removal spell. Okay, so I'm like literally in checkmate. Cool. Block here. Block here. I take 9. I just have to pretend they don't have a lightning bolt in their hand. Paying costs? Yep. Oh, it's a Ragavan. Okay. Alright, sword is... sword or... Because they didn't keep a black creature back, so... Sword or Steel Shaper's Gift does it. I don't think anything else does. There's the Cauldron I called out a couple turns ago. Thanks, deck. I guess you can only be cracked for so long. I want to see what my top card was. Hammer. They have... Oh, why can't I move this out of the way? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. My construct would have been 1, 2, 3, 14. They would have died. I was 1 card away from winning that game. Okay. I still think Crocs is not very good against me in general. Condra's terrible. Get out of here. Steel Shaper's Gift would have won me the game there, but I don't think it's very good in general. Ornithopters are horrifyingly bad. Get a couple of these mana artifacts out of here. And that leaves me with 8 cards to bring in. I would bring in 5 Blacksmith Skills if I could. Turns out the sword would have been good, so I might keep it for that reason. Rest in Peace is fine. Relic. I tried last time. March would have been okay against the Alpine Moon, but my hand was also just kind of bad. Man, they have discard spells though. Spell Pierce very good against those. Is Teferi any good? Time Raveler? I guess it's like kind of a 2-for-1. Rest in peace, get in here. And I think I'm gonna bring the relic. And then I had the 2 Spell Pierces last time, but I don't think that's quite where I want to be. Even on the play. Like, maybe on the play it's like Spell Pierce is fine. But they have the discard spells, which make me unexcited. Yeah, Lavinia doesn't do anything that I want. They don't cast spells for free. Unless they want to put explosives on 0. I guess she technically stops that, which is really funny. Pithing Needle. Yeah, I think this is where we are. Same plan as last time. On the draw, I might bring in the Marches instead of the Spell Pierces. If I get to have a game 3. Well, this hand plays. Really hope for no Alpine Moons. But if Shadow becomes a popular deck again, then I'm just going to have to put Sanctifier and Vec in my sideboard, because it's really the only card that does anything against them on its own. Most of my deck is synergy-based, and a deck with discard spells and a card that's either counterspell or murder and Drown in the Loch, and with a bunch of 1-mana removal spells and explosives and dress downs, and Alpine Moons sometimes. They can just pick apart all of my synergies at every step of the game, and then beat me with like a 3/3 or a monkey, whatever they feel like, whatever they got lying around. It's gonna beat me. So this match is quite terrible. The only other thing that I could do is play Ingenious Smith in the 2-drop slot instead of like the Givers of Runes. And Ingenious Smith is okay because it specifically is it can whiff, and that's always frustrating, but most times it doesn't. Most times it'll find an artifact, even if it's just like an Ornithopter. They have to use removal on the Ingenious Smith, and I still have a piece of cardboard left over, even if it's an Ornithopter. So like, it helps to try and run out the removal in the same way that Giver does, except that with Giver, it's much more mandatory that they kill it, and it doesn't leave something behind. Whereas Smith, they can kill it at their leisure, but it'll leave something behind. So I think Smith is very defensible. There's the discard spell. They're gonna take Pure Steel. Probably. Actually, I'd rather them take Pure Steel here, because I want my 2-for-1s as much as possible. Okay. They did the thing. Well, Motobug. I am playing Moto. Please don't have Alpine Moon on turn 2 like my last opponent did. That was really frustrating. Okay, Stoneforge Mystic. I haven't decided what I'm getting yet. I kept talking about Sword last game, so I might get Sword. Usually my rule of thumb is if I don't have access to a hammer, to get a hammer. That's usually my rule. But I do have access to a hammer in the form of Urza Saga, so I have access to a hammer in a couple turns. And I also have another Stoneforge Mystic. But the sword is... I think the sword is kind of like my last line of defense, is when it's best. So I am going to pick up a hammer. I don't really want to attack them, because if I do and they have a fetch land, they go to 12, and that lets them put a shadow on the board. So I'm going to leave them at 16. If they have, like, fetch land Thoughtseize, then sure, but I want to make it as hard for them as possible. Red, that's either a creature or a removal spell. So there are 8 cards that could be. Black is another Thoughtseize, sure. they're almost surely going to take the Paladin, since they took the first one. Okay, change of plans. That's fascinating. Blacksmith Skill's a really good draw. They're at 12 now, so I am going to attack them for at least one. Since my constructs could get scrappy, I think I'm going to attack with both. The only consideration that I'm thinking about right now is I could Stoneforge in the hammer at end of turn, but then I can't make a construct, so I think that's bad. Oh, I don't think it's like bad, but I think it's less desirable than making a construct at end of turn. Since I can already play a shadow, I will now hit them. And I know they have a card in their hand that costs 1 red because they tried to cast it earlier. I suspect they have 2. I suspect they have a creature and a removal spell, which would be the reason to float red, untap, and then do something else. So 2 of their cards are creature and bolt effect, which would be Unholy Heat usually. More of those than bolts are in the deck. The other 2 cards are unknown to me. Preferably they are both 1 with nothing. I would accept that. Emrakul, the Eon's Torn. I would like it if that was in their hand as well. Okay. Oh, they have an actual Lightning Bolt. Look at me saying they don't play Lightning Bolt, and then they play Lightning Bolt. That would look like a goober. Okay, but 11 is the magic number, because the only creatures left in my deck have 1 power. So Hammer is now lethal on every creature. The problem is Drown. That card's a problem. Third Thoughtseize would be frustrating. I would Spell Pierce this if I had a Spell Pierce, but I do not. Looking at the way this game's played out, March of Otherworldly Light wouldn't be very good. So, I'm pretty glad that I didn't bring it. Sure. Okay. And then they're holding up 1 mana removal? Okay. That's fine. Do I just kill them? I think I do. I just need to get a Springleaf Drum, and then I can kill them, I think. Spell Pierce is also good. Definitely floating mana. So this will give me... If I get the Springleaf Drum, I have 4 mana. And I need 3 of it to be white for Pure Steel and Blacksmith Skill. So yeah, we're going to get Springleaf Drum, and we're going to push for lethal. And I don't think they commonly play ways to stop this. I'm going to start with the Hammer, because that taxes them the most. Like, it means that they can't kill the Pure Steel, because they have to kill the thing that I equip it to. I know, drawing a card is nice and all, but doesn't matter how many cards I draw if my opponent wins the game. Honestly, this line by itself might beat a single removal spell. Because I'll be left with 3 artifacts after this. So they can kill the Memnite. They can either die to the Memnite, or they can kill the Memnite and then die to the Construct. Yeah. So I didn't even need these 2 bangers in my hand. Okay. That's what being on the play will do for you. It's great. Now I have to be on the draw. Less great. I might bring the second Springleaf Drum in on the draw, because I'd like to jump ahead on mana. Spell Pierce seems less good on the draw. Something like a Teferi Time Raveler could be good. Set their threat back a turn. I doubt they'll keep Kaldra in. Wait, Kaldra's my card. I doubt they'll keep Kroxa in. But I could be wrong. They could keep like one or two. If they're on a list that plays more than that. If they're on... But they're on Ledger Shredder. They're probably not on 4 Kaldra. I keep saying Kaldra. They're probably not on 4 Kroxa. This is tough. I think on the draw I don't like Spell Pierce. Like, I wouldn't fault anyone for keeping it, but it's not something that's really appealing to me right now. So I could put in a single Ornithopter and a Drum if I want to maximize starting strong. But those cards are very poor top decks, and the game does come down to top decking quite a bit. So I think I'm going to put the Teferi in, because it's much better as a top deck. And the Paradise Mantle might be okay, because it cantrips off of the Purso Paladin. So that's a thing that I could do. 1 March could be okay. Maybe 1 Spell Pierce is fine. I don't love it. Maybe Needle? Just gets explosives or... gets explosives or Bobble? Neither of those seems really ideal. Alright, 1 Spell Pierce. Funny that I'm bringing in my 3-mana card on the draw. Would have preferred to have Sanctifier and Vec, but was not planning on playing this matchup this league. Hadn't seen Shadow around in a while. Took a quick look at my hand. Did not see any lands. Mulligan that. Took a quick look at my hand. Saw some lands. Gonna keep this one. I think the card that goes on the bottom is Shadow Spear. For a couple reasons. One, it's kind of underwhelming on its own. And 2, in the event that they have a discard spell or a counter spell, and they have a hand where they actively want to take Shadow Spear, which I can't think of one off the top of my head, but they might have a hand that actively wants to take Shadow Spear and just never have to deal with it this game. I would rather not give them that option. I'll just tutor it if I need it. Okay. Hope this isn't Ragavan with 5 removal spells in hand. Okay. Well, whichever 1-drop they don't take, I'm going to play that one. Smart. I feel like my brain is so wrinkly right now. I'm going to play the 1 card that I can next turn. I think I'd rather have the Giver of Runes. But that's the beauty of Thoughtseize, is that they get to take whichever one they don't want to play against. So if they have a land late hand, they'll probably take Sentinel. If they, I don't know, maybe I kind of think they just take Sentinel and then bolt the Giver on site. I feel like that's how that's going to go. We shall see. They're thinking it through. They have 9.5 minutes, so they're allowed. Yeah, they did take that percentile. Sword of Fire and Ice. You are a card that would have won me game 1. Thanks for showing up to the party. Better late than never, I suppose. They can go to 12 here. The Watery Grave Double Shadow is probably a worst case scenario. Bolt my Giver, play 1 Shadow? No, Ledger Shredder, okay. No, why do I draw a 0-drop now after the Shredder's in play? Okay. This is a situation where I'd be kind of inclined to put Culture in my hand because they left Giver of Runes on the battlefield. That's interesting. I think this has to be Reality Chip. That's not entirely true. It does not have to be Reality Chip. I could pick nothing if I wanted to, but that'd be foolish. So the reason I thought so strongly on Reality Chip is that I already have a hammer and I have no way to attach it. So I just wanted a card that does something. It also turns all of my fetch lands into free shuffle effects. The worst brainstorm you've ever imagined, but if I can still compare it to brainstorm, that's already a high bar. So that's why I was thinking that. The other option is a second hammer, because that's the best, that's the highest upside, basically, is why I would pick that one. If I ever draw a way to attach a hammer, then it forces them to deal with two hammers instead of just one. So I think those are the two options realistically. And I think I prefer Chip. But it's... Alright, there was one time where I went with my gut and I was wrong, and there was one time and I didn't go with my gut and I was wrong. So I'm 0 for 2. Let's see if I can puzzle this one out. And see if there's a strong case for either one. If they had a removal spell for my Giver, I don't think they would have played it over playing Shredder. So they realistically could still have a removal spell, or even 2 in hand, or even 3. They have 3 cards in hand, they can have 3 removal spells. I think... I've already got a sword that I can slap down eventually. Reality Chip is an uncounterable creature, which is kind of neat. Okay, here's my logic. The Reality Chip helps me get to the other cards in the event that I draw, say, a fetch land, and then I see a card that I want on top, I can keep it, and if I see a card that I don't want on top, then I can shuffle it away. So if I need another hammer, the Reality Chip can help me find it. Whereas if I pick a hammer, then I'm relying strictly on my deck to come up with something good. Second Shredder, okay. Do they have a bauble? No, they have nothing. Okay. Well, there's a land. Land is good. I think I'm going to play the Memnite and hold up Stoneforge activation, because I don't know if I'd rather have the Sword or the Chip in play yet. And then I'll pass. This is the one I just played? Yeah. So if I animate the Inkmoth Nexus and block, I cannot activate Stoneforge, because this will then be a creature with Summoning Sickness. That's something to be aware of. Ah, they hit the third land. I would have rather they didn't, but... I can't always get what I want, as the song says. Lame for sure. Do I try and give something protection this turn? I suppose there's no reason not to, right? Terminate. Okay, I'm gonna let them connive twice because they don't know about Sword of Fire and Ice yet. Quit having Croxa! Stop it! I don't want you to have that card. Every time you connive. And a Lightning Bolt, okay. So... we're gonna activate... I think I'm gonna put in the Sword because they're tapped out and they played a land already, so I can put the Sword onto the Memnite. And attack. So they're probably going to hit me here because I can't block anymore. And I can hit them for 5 and then 10. So they're on a 2-turn clock, and if all of the removal spells are blue or red, they are just dead, straight up. They might just be in checkmate, but I'm not sure. That's hilarious. I will attack you. I will hit you. I will play land. I will play chip so that I have another creature for whatever that's worth. Stoneforge on top is a card. And let's see if they're in checkmate. If they don't have exactly Death Shadow, then I think they're in checkmate. But Death Shadow is not blue or red, so it can block. Okay, this is one of those situations where Alpine Moon is useless, basically. Like, they're gonna name Urza Saga. It's the right name. You can name Inkmoth if you want. That's fine as well, but Alpine Moon... Okay, sure. Now my Inkmoth Nexus makes white mana. That's neat. But yeah, they're in checkmate. I got this one. Oh, you know? You know what's hilarious is the only reason I have this is because of Teferi. The only reason that they haven't conceded is their last card in hand is Dress Down. They're going to remove protection from blue from my Memnite, and then they're going to block it. But I'm going to play Teferi, which means they can't do that anymore. They have to respond with Dress Down. I bounce the Dress Down, and I kill them. That's so funny. Teferi coming in clutch. Oh my god, it's Dress Down. That's the thing I said. This can go back. And then I will... Yep. Okay, so managed to beat Grixis Shadow one time, managed to lose to it another time. I don't think I've literally talked through the deck yet. Ending on a 4-1 feels good. Not quite as good as the 5-0 was last time, but you know. C'est la vie, I suppose. So here is what we're testing right now. There are 22 lands. None of them are the Horizon lands. I think I've seen people play one Horizon land, like Horizon Canopy or Silent Clearing, Sunbay Canyon, whatever, as just a way to ensure against mana flood. The reason that I don't think it's necessary, the reason that I'm personally not on it, is that there are... So you're on 22 lands, right? 4 of them die at some point. And the other 3 of them, so 7 total, don't even make white mana in a deck where you do care a lot about having white for Pure Steel Paladin, or for, like, Steel Shapers into Sigarda's Aid into Hammer, so you need white on a turn where you unload all at once, like that. Or a post board, when you have Blacksmith Skill, when you want to play like a Pure Steel and protect it in the same turn. So you need a lot of white mana. And yes, the Horizon Land gives you white mana, but there are a lot of situations where I need that... Because I did play a Horizon Land at one point, and I played all 4 of them when I was playing with the Black Splash instead of the Blue Splash, because it's a white-black land. So I found that I needed the white mana a lot, and that meant that I had to drain myself for a lot with the life loss before I ended up sacrificing it. And sometimes I never even sacrificed it. It was just a land that hurt me for every mana until the game ended. And if I won the game, then no harm, no foul, right? But there were a couple games where I ended up losing because I ended up drawing double of them as my only 2 white mana sources. And I didn't lose always strictly because of that, but I ended up losing a turn earlier than I would have otherwise, and that is a mark against it in my book. So to sum it up, I guess, the reason I'm not playing a Horizon Land over one of these random fetches, since I have so many fetches, is that I find that I need my mana a lot, so losing a land feels painful sometimes. And I find that keeping that land around hurts me for more than a shock land or a fetch land would most of the time. And the upside of sometimes it's worth a card isn't worth it in my opinion. But I have seen it floating around, and especially if you're playing black. Like, if there were a white-blue Horizon land, I would almost certainly play it. Maybe just as a 1 of or a 2 of, because it's on color, and that's much more important. But basically, just as a plains that hurts me, I'm not into that. If you are willing to play this deck, and you do want to try it out, I'm sure it's not bad. Like, I won't say you are wrong for doing that. I just gave you the reasons that I chose not to. Maybe for the next league, you know what I'll probably do is I'll play instead of the Givers and some other random card that's in here, I'll play the Ingenious Smiths and see if it feels any better or worse. I'm a big fan of the card of Giver of Runes. I like this card a lot. Just, I like it. It feels good to have. It feels good to play on turn 1 for 1 mana. It feels great to be able to punch through blockers in creature matchups. And it feels great that it basically says your opponent must kill this. And if they don't, then you know that they don't have a removal spell. Or you know that they have exactly 2. 1 to target the Giver, and then 1 to kill your target when you target something with Giver in response. So it gives you a lot of information as well. The Steel Shaper's gifts are fine. If you listen to the podcast, the episode 0 that I did with Jaeger, he asked me about Steel Shaper's gift, and I gave my thoughts there. I'll give them again in brief. That I think it's a wonderful card in Game 1 situations when I am just trying to do the thing as fast as possible, as reliably as possible. And it almost always gets cut because there are so many ways you can interact with Hammer. Shatters, naturalizes, land hate, creature hate, and discard spells and counter spells are good against everything, but I mean, I'm playing a deck that plays stuff, so discard spells and counter spells are good. The fact that all of those things are good against Hammer means that there are a lot of ways to interact with you, which means your opponents will have interaction in the sideboard. So almost always I cut 2 Smiths or 2 gifts for 2 Smiths, if that makes sense. In the matchups where it's just about racing, I don't do that. I cut other things instead. I cut like the chunky artifacts up here. Sometimes I keep Kaldra because trample's important, but I'll cut like some chunky artifacts, or I'll cut like Esper Sentinels in the racing matchups, because sometimes Esper Sentinels just Memnite that cost 1 mana, and that's not very good, like against elves or something, which I haven't seen in a while, but just throwing out an example out there where I would get this card out of my deck faster than the speed of light. I also cut it against Amulet a lot of the time, because Giver can give you pro-green to swing through blockers and win the game, but Esper Sentinel, especially on the draw, doesn't even draw you a card in most, or about half of the games. They just never cast a spell that matters, or if they do, it's packed and you die immediately. So those are some of the flex slots, I guess I could call them, and my thoughts on them. I think the 4 Stoneforge are too important, the 4 Pure Steel's too important. The Reality Chip, I could take it or leave it. The reason that I play it is that the upside is so high. The ability to sometimes draw 7 cards over the course of the game for just putting this in my deck is a really big upside. And the downside of it being an O4 that costs a different color is worth the upside, in my opinion. But if this were in the sideboard or not in the deck entirely, I don't think the deck would be that much worse. I just love the crazy turns where you go nuts. Sword, as I said, I was thinking about putting it on the sideboard because it's not very good in a lot of game 1s. It would have been good in that game 1 that I kept saying that it would have been good in. And then Kaldra, I think it gets worse if you don't have Giver to protect your Stoneforge Mystic, but it's still very good. The best matchups for Kaldra are the Mirror, Affinity, and Amulet, because they don't have a lot of removal to stop Stoneforge from just putting this into play, and this card's insane once it's on the battlefield against decks that don't have exile removal spells or bounce spells or Archmage's Charm specifically to gain control of the germ. So the next time I play, I'll have some Smiths in. We'll see how it goes different. I might change the sideboard around, but this is a pretty good sideboard. Covers a lot of bases. The Relic, I think, is maybe not necessary if I have the Rest in Peace, or maybe it's better as a second Rest in Peace, but I like having a way to cantrip off my Urza Saga. The Teferi's come up a lot. I've been impressed. I thought this was going to be an underwhelming card, just like a 3 mana bounce draw, and then the game goes on. Just like kind of just, hey, let's make the game go for one more turn. But you saw in the last game there where it was pretty good, and you saw in a Murktide League, maybe a Murktide match, I think. If you watch that video, I end up bouncing a Murktide, and my opponent, I never saw their hand, but they chose not to recast it ever in that game, so it basically just murdered a Murktide Regent, drew a card, which was a real good deal in that match. Those are my thoughts. Thanks for sticking with me if you made it to the end of the video here, as I ramble about my pet deck in Modern right now. And hopefully for the next video, I will have the ability to play an entire league in one video instead of spreading it out among 3 videos. So look forward to seeing you next time, and I look forward to being an ingenious Smith caster in that league. Until then, stay safe, have fun, continue enjoying Modern, and I'll talk to you later.